everyone. Welcome to the Unidos Creativos panel. We are so excited to be celebrating Latino Heritage Month. Let us know in the comments what Latin American country you are repping tonight. We were so excited to see you all here joining us. I'm Sheryl Desir, and I am part of Our Vibes. I'm co-founder, and my pronouns are she, her, and hers. I was born in Los Angeles, but my roots are from Oaxaca and Michoacan. And today I'll be co-hosting today's event, and I am so excited to be here with you guys. Our Vibes is a Latinx collective telling Latinx stories. We are so passionate about educating and making people smile while using our creativity. Tonight we are coming together to uplift Latinos who are doing amazing things. They are out here securing the bag, and they're building their own platform, and most importantly, reaching out to their community to uplift others. So some of the community guidelines before we begin are, you can ask any questions down in the chat. This Zoom will be recorded. Don't unmute your camera or turn on your camera. Don't unmute your mic, and be respectful and open-minded. You can also post about our event and tag us. Our social media handles will be on our screen, so feel free to tag us and let us know how much you're loving this event. Now I want to introduce my co-host, the amazing comedian Robbie.
What's up, everybody? Hey, hola, welcome. My name is Robert Parra, also known as Funny Robbie Rob. I'm a proud Mexican and Native American born and raised in San Jose, California. My pronouns are he, him, his. Currently, I sit on the advisory board of Creating Creators and committee member of Emerging Leaders Council of Outfest Los Angeles. I am excited and honored to be co-hosting actually with Our Vibes Media at this evening's virtual event. I want to hear from these amazing panelists. So I am just going to go down the line and introduce their name, and then we'll hear from them more when we talk and, ask them their questions. So first up, we have Alexis Garcia. We also have Eddie, also known as, oh my God, it's Eddie G. Garcia. We have Jeannette Ceja, and last but not least, Tricia Kirsten Valencia. Let's all give a round of applause, clap, snaps to them. But before we start actually our questions, I do have an icebreaker because I want to get to know them just a little bit more. So from the panelists, you get to pick one. Who is your favorite TV show host? I'm going to give you the list of names. So here we go. Cristina, Walter Mercado, Viviana Gabili and Daniel Sarcos, or Don Francisco. So let's start with Alexis. You can only pick one favorite.
That's a tough choice, but I'm definitely going to go with Walter. Just okay. the theatrics and his always positive messages. Okay.
And then Eddie, we'll go with you next.
Yeah, why the limited choices? There's so many people out there too, huh? But I'm just gonna say Don Francisco because I got to meet him. I didn't get to meet any of the other ones. I'm like, hey, I met him, so I'm Don Francisco. Plus, I mean, for being an immigrant, he accomplished a lot of stuff in the United States. He broke a lot of barriers. So Don Francisco.
Okay, Jeannette.
I'm going to say Cristina because she is like our Oprah, and I don't know about everyone else, but I grew up watching her every day after school. So I would say Cristina.
All right, Tricia.
I don't want to be redundant, but I got to say Cristina also because I will pick a strong, opinionated woman every time.
Oh, snaps. Snaps with that. So let's start our questions.
I can start us off. So
yes.
We wanted to know about your guys' accomplishments and what you are most proud of. And you can also tell us a little bit about yourself as well. Did you hear me? Sorry, I saw the mute button. So we're going to start with our questions. We want to start with your accomplishments and what you're most proud of. So tell us a little bit about yourself as well.
Let's go with Tricia.
Okay. So I am a documentary filmmaker by profession. And that comes with lots of parts, as you might imagine. I did not know that I would become a filmmaker when I was in my early 20s. I think I'm sort of the old crone on the panel. I've got a couple decades of experience behind me. I was a community organizer. I worked for different social justice organizations. I worked on healthcare and neighborhood housing and public safety, organizing in my community. Violence against women and girls was a huge issue that I worked on for many, many, many years. And after I was an organizer, I decided I wanted to learn how to make media for social change. So it was a little bit of a zigzaggy kind of path, although I don't think it was. As an undergraduate, I studied psychology, and for me, that helps me be a much better filmmaker. I'm like keenly interested in people and their stories. And for me, it was always about trying to figure out ways to uplift the Latino community. So my work was, I was with Spanish-speaking battered women. My work was always connected to the community in those kinds of ways. And then I went to film school in my late 20s and became a director producer, which is what I do now. And for many years, I did it as an independent, as a freelance, so I can sort of talk to that side of what it was. I also spent about half a decade as a teacher, a professor at Santa Clara University. So I taught film production and film history. So I had that kind of piece of my puzzle. And I've returned now to working at a nonprofit where I'm literally like a month into a new gig where my job is to start a nonprofit video production studio focused on the Latinx community, both in hiring Latinx folks to do the work and also running a program where we're bringing up youth to be apprentices in the field to try to give more opportunities. So, and then my work itself tends to be feature and short films about social justice issues, usually the Latino community, almost always focusing on women. For me, there's a lot of intersectionality there between those parts of my identity. Yeah, so, and then, I'm also a mother and an activist and lots of other parts of my life that I'm very, very proud of, and they all kind of combine on top of each other.
Yeah, I love it. So many hats to wear, and you can't just be stuck to one thing. So your accomplishments are amazing. How about you, Jeannette?
Wow. I feel I've been a storyteller since I can remember. I would read the newspaper at the dining room table and just tell anybody and nobody the news. I just felt like I was a communicator. So that kind of translated into what I later found would be as a journalist, as a storyteller. I really looked up to women like Christina, like Oprah, and Christiana Amanpour, who is a foreign news correspondent, still to this day, I mean, in her 50s and whatnot. She's amazing, still out there. And so that's kind of my forte, my background. I've been submitting to magazines since I was 14. When I was 14, I wrote to Girl, and I still have that little snippet. It was about J-Lo and how inspiring J-Lo, Jennifer Lopez, was. So it's always been in the communication. I really love to see like what you guys are doing tonight, empowering, the Latinx community. And I'm all about women empowerment, diversity, and that is still to this day. I've worked at many different media and sports. I've lived abroad. I've traveled to 60 countries in pursuit to find a way to bridge travel and humanity in a way to connect us, to bring us together. That's always been my purpose. And so that is what I'm continuing to do.
Thank you for sharing that. I think that's so cute how you would just tell anybody or nobody. I think that's how we all start, right? At some point, we just got to do it. And even if nobody's listening, but you're so successful now, so it definitely paid off. How about you, Alexis? What are some accomplishments and just a little bit about yourself?
Thank you for having me. I'm super inspired already by the stories shared by Jeannette and Tricia. I came to the industry as a writer. In college, I was pursuing film studies, and I realized that I also wanted to major in Latin American studies because I was on this quest, like this identity quest of figuring out more about my cultural history and how it relates to how as a person moving through the world. I think, when you grow up as a Latin American person in the US, you are inevitably multicultural, and you're speaking one language at home, and on the street you're speaking another one. And so that dichotomy was always really interesting to me. And so when I graduated, I knew I wanted to work in the industry in some capacity because I felt myself as a storyteller, and I got into a TV writing program through the National Hispanic Media Coalition. They do amazing work here, and I live in LA, and they do work in Hollywood advocating for Latinos and Latino Latinx storytellers here in the industry. And so they were the ones that found me and pulled me out of obscurity from my internship in New York City, and brought me here. And I quickly realized that I needed to also learn the production process. I would never feel fulfilled as a storyteller if I didn't also learn how to direct. And going to film school was really, really expensive. I already had like a ton of student loans. And so I was like, you know, hustling, working 2 jobs. I ended up getting an assistant gig with a TV director, and I worked with her for 2.5 years. And she had just been nominated for an Emmy. So her calling card was super hot, and we were working on a ton of different shows. And that's how I learned, you know, how to direct and the camera and all of that stuff. But unfortunately, the transition between being an assistant and actually getting a job as a director is really, really hard. And especially for people of color, because we don't necessarily come from families that are already established in the industry, and we don't have an uncle that can be like, hey, I'll give you a job. And so the only way to prove yourself is to build a portfolio, and that can be really expensive. But you have to try. If this is in you, you have to, you know, overcome all of these obstacles in order to do that. And so I was able to gather the funding for a short film. And, you know, after working for this director for 2.5 years, I'm like, I got to direct something. Like, you know, I have the skill set and I haven't done anything. And so I directed this short film, and that's what pushed me in the direction of digital. That was when, you know, YouTube and Vimeo and all of these other platforms were starting to pop off. And I was like, there are real opportunities in digital. And I started to actively pursue those. And I landed at Univision. They had a digital platform called Flama, which was very similar to Pero Like. They were making English language content for Latinx millennials. And then Univision decided to, you know, end their investment in that property. And fortunately, Pero Like was looking for a social media strategist at that time. And I interviewed with the team, and I loved everybody, and I loved the mission. And I ended up getting the job, and I started like a week before Donald Trump came into office. So it has been, I mean, it's interesting because at that time before, it's like to think back to the times before Donald Trump and what the plight of Latinos were, it was, you know, so different than what we've had to deal with for the past, I would say 4.5 to 5 years, because, you know, he was running for president for a year before he became president. And even then he was just relentlessly attacking our community. And so formerly our mission was to just entertain and, you know, uplift the community. And as soon as Trump came into office and he started attacking the community, part of our mission became to inform the community and become activists and become politically engaged, even as an entertainment platform. So I'm really proud of the work that we've done over the last 4 years. I graduated from strategist to producer to showrunner of a Facebook Watch series last year, and I'm currently the lead video producer on the team. And I just am really motivated on a daily basis to tell the stories of our community, to tell them accurately, to represent our community accurately, because that representation is so important, especially when we have, you know, the person in the highest office trying to say things about, you know, stereotype our community negatively, and we see how that has real world effects and, you know, just reverberates across the globe. So yeah, I think that's what the accomplishment I'm most proud of, and is that we are fighting against this. And I guess my message is everyone go vote.
Yes,
Thank you
absolutely.
for that. So much knowledge just thrown out there right now. And thank you for saying how like you, through networking and getting through these programs, you got your foot into the door. And then from there, it was hard work putting your portfolio together, because it doesn't stop there and the networking doesn't stop there. And I think you're a really great example of how all of those things together can lead you to being a lead producer and doing what you truly love. And that's educating Latinx people. So thank you for sharing. Eddie, how about you, your accomplishments, and just tell us about yourself.
Yeah, well, it started when I was born, and I go back that far. No, you know what's great is listening to all of you guys tell your stories, and I'm like, hey, I relate to that, and I relate to that, and I relate to that, and you know, like traveling. That was one of the big things that I wanted to do, like early on when I started getting into this medium. It's like, hey, I really want to travel the world and get paid for it. You know, that would be awesome if I could do that. And going the traditional route and then kind of getting stuck somewhere, and it's like, hey, this doesn't go anywhere, and just going and doing something else. It's just like I hear little bits of my own story in your story, which is a great reason for having panels like these. It's just like letting people know, hey, you're not alone. You might be in a different part of your trajectory, but you know, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. For me, I started off getting interested in creating videos pretty early on. I was the kid that always would pick up my parents' video camera, and I would be recording all of our family functions and stuff like that. And so I picked up a knack for it. In high school, I started making short videos, and people kept telling me like, hey, you're really good at this. Like, you should consider going to film school. So when I graduated from high school, I went into electronic media management, not because I necessarily wanted to, but because the film program at my school was really difficult to get into, and my portfolio to get into film school was not very traditional. Like you had to submit 12 frames and tell a story, and for mine, I picked a baby doll that was a punk rock baby doll. So it was like a punk rock baby doll that was late for its plastic surgery appointment. So it was like, I'm sure the people that are looking at this portfolio, they're looking at this going like, this is crazy. This is ridiculous, right? And at the time, I don't want to date myself here, but this is before YouTube. And if you know anything about YouTube, it's like this is what makes YouTube. It's like, it's not like the expected. It's all the stuff that's just like, oh, that's a little quirky, or that's funny. And so when I graduated from college is when YouTube was just starting to pop off. You know, it was like that was a place where you would go and put your short film or whatever it is for people to watch it, but it still was not a place to make money. That didn't come until much later. So I went the more safe route. You know, I went and I could have gone into television, and I worked at a distributor for music and television. I'm not gonna name drop here, but very, very popular. But then I kind of saw the business side of entertainment. I was really turned off by it. I was like, you know what, this is not for me. Like, and again, YouTube was still not a business. So I went and I did that for about 10 years, got my master's degree, and then it was my last summer before completing my program, and I couldn't get into the classes that I could get into, that I need to get to that I need to take to graduate. And so I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna have a free summer, so I'm gonna make YouTube videos. And I made a few, and I was like, hey, this is fun. And you know, like all those feelings of accomplishment, you know, when I would make a video and then people would react to it and they're like, hey, this is really good, like you should make more of that. That came back to me, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna do this. Like I'm gonna really put some effort into it. So that whole summer I made a ton of videos. Eventually some of these videos went viral, and And I was like, peace out, job. I have a future in entertainment, you know? And it was yeah, I quit. I mean, I was making really good money, and everyone's like, dude, you are nuts. Like, how are you gonna do? And I was like, I'll figure it out, you know. And that's the thing about Latinos in entertainment, or in the creative arts, I should say. You get discouraged by people who don't see a way to make money off of it because they've never themselves seen it, you know. They think, oh, like, no, go be an engineer, or go be this, go be that. Don't go into the arts. You don't want to be an artist. Like, well, why not? You know. And I think that's kind of instilled in our culture. So long story short, you know, I went, did videos, created some characters, did really great stuff. I interviewed a lot of really cool, interesting people that, you know, I grew up on, like Don Francisco. I went and danced with some of the bands that I would listen to when I was a kid in my parents' living room, you know, the Banda Machos. I made a video on La Chona, and it went viral. And like 2 years later, La Chona is everywhere. And I'm like, yeah, this is what, you know, what I was trying to do with my content. It's like, put it out there. Because when I started doing this YouTube stuff, and again, I'm dating myself here, but there weren't very many Latinos, and there weren't very many people defending our community. And so my biggest accomplishment is getting to experience all that and speak on behalf of the Latino community that's a transplant, like they're immigrants, and, you know, they're first generation, because at the time that I was doing it, no one else was doing it. And so that's one of my biggest accomplishments. So hopefully that wasn't too long, but that's my trajectory.
That was amazing. You're the OG of like video creation, and I think you're such a great role model because of that whole stigma, or like, of culture within our own culture of like the arts. No, mija, like go be a doctor.
Right.
But that's not what we're passionate about. So really seeing you, like, you paved the way, and it's possible. So thank you for sharing that. It's really inspiring.
Yeah, very, very good information, and the answers. I mean, I can relate to some of the stuff that you said, Eddie, about, you know, when it comes to job. You know, about probably a year ago, I was working in investment banking, making, you know, decent amount of money, but I'm like, this is not making me happy. It's not fulfilling what I do, you know, because the other time of, you know, when I leave work, it has to do with my creative side. So my next question is, and we'll start off with you, Eddie, is how does your culture influence your content?
Sorry. For me,
Yes.
what influences my content is everything that I do is my culture. Like, when people ask me what my content is about, it's about the intersection of two cultures, two languages, you know. I was raised in Mexico for 10 years. Like, a lot of people don't know that. Sometimes people will say in the comments, like, "Yeah, este güero no sabe que, you know, este que otro." Like, I have the Mexican stamp of approval, guys. Like, look, I got the Mexican you know what I mean? Like, if you know, you know.
Right.
So I was born here, but when I was very, very young, months old, we went to live in Mexico. So I got to experience both cultures. I got to experience, you know, Spanish was my first language. I got to experience the immigrant story, and everything that I do is, if you look at it, a lot of times people look at it and they'll just kind of think that it's playing on stereotypes or whatever it is. And like, if you go and you look at it, you'll see kind of what I'm doing. There's a lot of stuff with language that I'm doing, a lot of stuff with clashes of cultures, the clashes of generations, all these different things that because people see it in their own lives, they relate to it. You know, they're like, the people that know, when I say like chicken my nuggets, I made a video of one of my characters saying, like, he's doing English with Tiburcio, where he's saying all these English words, but like how my mom says them, or like how my dad says them. So, you know, I did this video back in, you know, 2014, and like, that was one of the ones that like really went out there, you know. And you would hear people in the comment, or you see people in the comments saying stuff like, "Oh, he's making fun of Mexicans and whatever." I was like, no, like, where is that generation represented in the social media stuff? It's not making fun of it. It's like, it is what it is. I'm just showing it to you. And those people that understood it were like, oh, I see it. Or, you know, with the storyline, blending in the storylines and kind of telling a story. I'm telling the story of an immigrant who comes to the United States and doesn't understand. It's a fish out of water story. And this character, Tiburcio, that I'm talking about, is just trying to ride the waves. He saw a little bit of fame, and now he's like, I'm going to make it. He's got that determinist attitude that I see in my uncles and my dad and my mom, where it's just like, my mom went to school for 9 years to speak English, and she still, you know, she struggles with it, but like, le echa ganas, you know? And so I'm paying an homage to that, you know, and everything that I do on my OMG It's Eddie G channel is about exposing people to that culture. One of my first popular videos on my channel was, what is Dia de los Muertos? And to this day, you know, every time, you know, very appropriate, the Dia de los Muertos. One of the videos that I get so many comments on from teachers is that, what is Dia de los Muertos? And this is before Book Alive. This is before, you know, any of the Disney
Coco.
stuff, you know. Yeah, Coco, which was a very contentious thing when they tried to copyright Dia de los Muertos. I don't know if you guys remember that, but I was one of the people that was very vocal about it. You know, it was like,
Yes.
wait, you can't trademark our culture, dude. Like, what the hell? So anyway, that's how Lalo ended up getting on that consultant gig. But you know, the thing is, like, I was putting this type of content out there. It's entirely based on my culture. I just want people to experience it from the point of view that I've experienced. It's a beautiful culture. It's not what you see on television, all the negative stereotypes. Like, there's a lot more depth to our stories and our culture. So that's what I try to strive to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Alexis, we'll go with you.
Yeah, I completely agree with Eddie. It's almost like you can't extricate your culture from the content, because then it loses the authenticity, and what relates, you know, best to audiences, especially in digital, is when you are authentically connecting with them through your story, through tradition. So I definitely agree with that, and the two are absolutely mutually exclusive. And I encourage people to you know, not be afraid of approaching your art, whether it be, you know, in content creation, or if it's, you know, actual painting or any of that stuff, not being afraid of expressing your cultural identity in your art, because your voice is so important to the world. You know, there's only one of you, and only one, like, I'm struggling to put these words together, but your perspective is so unique and so necessary.
Right. No, I absolutely agree. I think everybody here, even on the panel, we all have our different stories and our journeys. And that's what is the beauty of what we do, our work, right? We have our own stories to tell, but also from our different cultures, or the people that we have in terms of our families, our gente. So I agree with you on that one. Absolutely. Tricia, your turn.
So partly I wanted to just respond to what Alexis said and support it, because we do need to tell each other that our stories are so important. And if we tell them well, if we tell them with specificity, they are universal. So don't let anybody tell you that nobody wants to see a Latinx story, or nobody wants to hear about a girl from LA, because that's bullshit, right? If it has pathos and emotion and you know, just real human struggle in it, all audience members, or most audience members, are going to be able to relate to your work. So stay true to your own storytelling, because that's going to be the best stuff, right? And so for my part, when we think about, you know, why do I make the work that I make, I can chart my trajectory of wanting to make films that were about me and things that I was thinking about, caring about as a young woman, because I had never, ever, ever seen it. And it was so painful to me. You know, once I sort of went from being a movie lover, someone who just loved the movies, went all the time, something I did with my dad. We would talk about movies, read movie reviews, like from little, that was my trip. It never occurred to me that I wasn't seeing things that were made by people like me or that were about me. Like, you know, I mean, I'll really age myself here, but like Tatum O'Neal in the original Bad News Bears was my girl, because I hadn't seen someone who was a tomboy. I hadn't seen someone who was powerful. You know, so I totally related to this little white girl because it was the only thing I could see, you know, on screen. So, you know, the first film I ever made in film school was about women of color who were cheerleaders in high school. And like, yeah, that was part of my story. And I tied it to women being activists in our community and being not unafraid to speak out and tell their truth. And it was, you know, it was funny and it had performance art in it. And then I made another film. The next one was about teenage girl basketball players, girls of color. And they weren't pregnant and they weren't in a gang. They were striving to go to college and one was poor and needed a scholarship, right? So I just tried to find ways to bring parts of my story to the screen because it's just so powerful to see ourselves on screen, right? And so that's what it is when we say, like, how does my culture impact my work? In every single piece I do, I'm bringing part of our story to the screen because I know it's going to resonate and we deserve to see ourselves up there.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. Jeannette?
I'm so inspired by all of the panelists here and their stories as well. Similar experience, and the whole reason why I ventured more into the travel sphere as opposed to the news world was, one, I didn't want to be the messenger of bad news, and two, I kept seeing on all these discovery shows, travel shows, History Channel, how beautiful the world really is. The news will always tell us one side, and sure, we need that, but there's still so much more. And I really fell in love. I was like a sponge watching all these shows about the world and cultures. And you know, I would go to Mexico City where my parents are from. My dad's actually from Michoacan, like Sheryl. So, woo, woo. But my mother's from Mexico City. So I spent every summer of pretty much my entire childhood in Mexico City with my grandparents. They only spoke Spanish. And I really loved immersing myself in the Mexican culture and then coming back to the States where I was born, immersing myself in the American culture. So I've always felt really proud of both of my cultures and languages. But one thing I kept seeing or not seeing on the travel sphere was Latinos or Latinas. And if there was one here or there, like, you know, Sofia Vergara, who had a travel show, maybe she was in a bikini and she's like a supermodel. She's like not of this world. So at the same time, I couldn't really relate to her because I didn't physically look like her. So even in that way, I felt like we still needed more diversity, more women that young girls like me could relate to. So I really pushed, and I'm still pushing in my industry to have more women, have more, you know, people with disability, physical disabilities, LGBTQ, you know, Latinos, you know, everyone to be more included in our industry, more representation of what the actual world is. So that's a lot of what I do in my everyday world. I speak to colleges, I have mentees, I had mentors. So it really is involved in every way of my life. And also last year I wrote a treatment for a travel show. I went to UCLA for producing, professional producing program with the intent to host and produce a travel show that would be more inclusive, right? And so last year I was pitching it and then I got momentum and then, you know, COVID happened, like so many other things. So it's been on the back burner, it's not done, but I'm still pushing it because I feel like in 2020, we need more Latinos, we need more women, we need more LGBTQ, we need more representation. And if we're not invited, you know, a seat at the table, let's build our own table. Let's make our own table because it's time. In 2020, I am tired of knocking on doors and being ignored. Like, okay, let's just do our own thing, right? So,
Yeah, We have to, and I think this is perfect. We're starting here, and I think a lot of different organizations and individually we're starting to have these conversations and go beyond the conversations, right? Because it's important, like we all get hyped up in these things, but then like when we leave, what are we doing? And so definitely encouraging one another to like help one another, Latinos and people of color, when it comes to like making your own seat at the table. So the next question I want to move on to ask you guys, how do you stay true to who you are when in times people in power try to change your voice? And I think we went over this a little bit, but more in specific, how do you individuals stay true to your own voice? And we can start with Tricia.
I have a lot to say about this one. You guys can tell me to pipe down. Yeah, so I've been doing this for a long time, and I've encountered a lot of sexism and a lot of racism in my day. And I've learned the hard way to really, really, really make sure when it's my vision, when I'm directing or producing, that I get final cut. I've had situations where I did not have that, and it was very painful to me, where someone else got to make the final decisions when we got to the end of a project. I've been on projects where once it was over, I didn't own it, and I couldn't distribute it, and I couldn't do anything with it. And that was incredibly painful for me. Huge mistakes in my own sort of understanding of what I assumed would happen, didn't have a good contract, didn't realize I needed to build that into my contract. This is when I was working a lot as an independent producer director. I have had, you know, in one case I had a white male executive producer, just we fought and we fought and we fought throughout the entire documentary because he felt like I was centering the voices of people of color too much in this documentary, to the point where literally at one point he said to me, nobody wants to hear people of color yelling and screaming up on screen. And I was like, are you talking about Norman Mineta, the former Secretary of Transportation, who in this film I interview about his time when he was interned as an 11-year-old boy? Is it he who you don't want to hear yelling and screaming on screen? I mean, I just kind of went through and I kind of held firm on like, we need to hear these stories. And I had to make some compromises, and I had to take out some stuff that was powerful and important to me because I needed to get the thing, you know, through. And after that film was done, I felt like I hadn't completely won. And then what happened was people in my community came to me and were like, thank you. Like, we haven't had our voices on screen in that way. It was so important to us, you know, really mostly just totally backed my play and told me that what I had done was very, very powerful for our communities. But that doesn't mean it didn't hurt and it wasn't hard, right? So, you know, I mean, I literally would just stay in edit suites and fight and fight and fight and fight and fight and stay in it and try to get my vision up on screen as much as possible. But it's a fight. I mean, it's not always easy. It's not always easy.
And I like how you brought up that you had to fight, but how did you have those conversations? I think a lot of people on the panel also, well, listening into this, are maybe young or in that same position where like they have like many years in their job, but how do you have those conversations? How do you fight without being like disrespectful or I don't know, like how do you approach that conversation?
Sure. I mean, if anybody watched the vice presidential debates this week, Kamala Harris is someone who knew how to stand up to a white man and say what she needed to say and come off as just smart enough and just clear enough without being disrespectful. And I know that that's a talent that we've all developed. We all know how to do it. We've been doing it our whole lives, right? So that combined with my community organizing background, I am very strategic. I'm constantly thinking about what's the long game? How do I get from here to there without, you know, flaring up and making people backed into a corner and scared such that my whole thing is going to get shut down? So I think like a political activist in every maneuver that I do. And I can tell you on that particular project, when my script was getting stuck, I literally called in a white male filmmaker friend of mine to a meeting, and I pre-prepped him and I said, you know what this man needs to hear about this story that I'm telling. Will you just tell him what I've been telling him for months? And he did, and it worked.
Wow. So the allyship definitely like
hugely
also, you know, yeah, bringing Latinos in, but also being allies with different people of just white people or even different people of color, because that seems to have helped. And you're right, like sometimes it takes a person that looks like them to really listen to something that you've been trying to say over and over again.
And all I think of that, you know, I mean, it's annoying that that's the way it has to be sometimes, but I'm also like, I'm a master manipulator and I got what I needed.
I love that. You gotta do what you gotta do. How about you, Eddie? How do you stay true to yourself? And I know you're a content creator, so working with brands or companies, like, how do you keep your voice?
I found myself going like, wow, Tricia, like that is gutsy, because I like I've been in situations where I've been challenged on something, and you know, at first I was like, you know, I'm trying to make a living off of this, but you know, I have this thing that I'm trying to achieve, and the first few times I didn't really know how to navigate it. So this is actually an excellent question, and I won't bore you with all the details, but I think that again, because we haven't been in this industry as long as a lot of other people have, sometimes we don't know our own worth. So I think it starts there. You have to know that what you do has value. Okay, if someone is coming to you, it's because they see value in what you do, right? And a lot of times we kind of downplay it, like, oh, you know, I'm just grateful, I'm grateful, and you should be grateful, but you also should stand up for those values and that worth that you have. And so first and foremost, you have to know that you have to be aware of your own value. Second is you have to be willing to walk away, and I think that's when you are, especially making a living off of something, is very difficult to do. But I've said no to a lot more things because the terms weren't beneficial to me. Either I didn't own the IP, or someone else was going to get, like you were talking about, Tricia, like someone else gets to make the final decision on something. And you really can't, you don't have that leverage if you don't have that value. So first and foremost, you have to establish your value. You have to know it. You have to be willing to walk away. Sometimes it's not about fighting it. Sometimes it's being like, I'm not going to fight you. I'm just going to take this to your competitor, you know? And sometimes that's what it takes. You know, you want to make it, friendly. You don't want to make it like a threat, but it's like, hey, you know what, I have other options. And that's something that I learned from, you know, a mentor a long time ago, is like, don't ever put yourself in a situation where you have no other option. And especially recently with like all this political stuff, and just kind of, you know, the environment has kind of taken a weird turn, because now brands don't want to engage with someone that, or be associated with someone that has spoken up about something that is could be considered controversial. And so I got this pitch for this campaign, and they said, like, they asked a series of questions. Have you done any videos or talked about any of these things? And I had a side conversation with the person that reached out on behalf of this client. I said, look, I'm never going to apologize for speaking up for my community. And so if this brand is saying that this one bullet point disqualifies me from being a participant in this because I have done this, I have spoken about politics, and you know, I have a stance on it, then this is not the project for me. But if they're willing to scratch that one off the list, then yeah, I'll definitely do it. And I mean, what do you think happened? Like, they went, no, like, because they understood that my audience and what I was willing to do for that brand was worth more than this one bullet point. Like, and I think we're seeing a shift in the culture too. When people stand up, the brands are like, well, there's more benefit in us supporting the community than us not engaging with that community altogether. You know what I mean? So I don't know. Hopefully that kind of, piggybacked a little bit on what Tricia said, because I think it's very similar in the what do you call it, the digital space. You still have to deal with the politics and stuff, but again, it all starts with just knowing your worth, you know.
Yeah, no, that was a great piggyback because Tricia knew her worth and she knows her worth. And that's why she was able to really fight for what she believed in. And so it really makes a lot of sense. And thank you you have such a big platform. And I think because you did that, any other smaller micro influencers or any other content creators that go and do that now have like an uphand because somebody with such a big platform did it. And I think that's also a question that we have, like, do we really stay true to ourselves and talk about politics, you know, when right now we're fighting something that is affecting a lot of Latinos, all Latinos. So it's nice to hear from you that, yes, you can talk on what you believe in. And if a brand doesn't want to work with you, you knowing your worth and walking in there and having other options and saying no is okay.
Yeah, and it does become, I don't want to make it seem, because, you know, I understand not everyone has that privilege, I would say, you know, to walk away from it, but that's why that point about never being in a position where they are your only choice. So I've had to, like, I do a ton of video stuff for other people. They'll never mention it. I do consulting stuff. I do a bunch of other stuff outside of my platform, so I don't earn my bread and butter from my content alone. Like, you have to diversify, and so, you know, yes, be confident, but also have other options available to you. I don't want to make it seem like, yeah, just go in there and say no to everyone. Like, hey, sometimes you got to compromise, right, Tricia? Sometimes you got to compromise.
Awesome. Alexis, how do you stay true to yourself? I know that BuzzFeed is very open to whatever you talk about. Has there been maybe in a previous job or freelancing for different projects that you had to like really stand up for your own voice?
I mean, it happens, especially in creative spaces that, like Tricia mentioned, there can be creative differences and that can be challenging sometimes. But I mean, I'm just going to echo what both, you know, Tricia and Eddie really answered this question so beautifully. It really is about choosing your battles and knowing when to walk away, but also being willing to compromise, because, you know, sometimes somebody has an idea that maybe you didn't really, you know, you're struggling with, and maybe you ultimately go with that idea and it turns out for the best. But then again, on the other hand, like, you know, at Better, like, we have certain things, like our sales team will be like, you know, this brand's really interested in selling Day of the Dead again this year. And we're like, how many times do we have to tell you guys this? You know, Day of the Dead is a sacred holiday and we're not for sale on this. We've also said no to Cinco de Mayo content because all of these brands are still trying to get behind Cinco de Mayo. And yes, it's an amazing money-making opportunity for you know, smaller creators, and I'm not trying to knock them at all, but for us as a brand, we're standing up and making a statement. No, we don't want to be bought and continue to perpetuate these stereotypes about Cinco de Mayo being, you know, Mexican Independence Day, or it being this, you know, big thing, when it's just it's kind of like a made-up holiday here in the States, you know. And so it really is about, you know, standing your ground, but also knowing when to walk away. And I also just want to add that when you are in a position where you are having a difference with somebody and it can be really toxic, you are your number one. Like, you need to take care of yourself first. If it is taking a toll on your mental health, if it's, you know, damaging who you are as a creative, like, you've got to take care of you first, and then, you know, the rest will follow. And I encourage people to seek advice. Eddie mentioned mentorship. Like, the mentors are so important, and a mentor doesn't have to be you know, you're like, oh, I don't have a mentor. A mentor doesn't have to be someone who's super established in the industry. A mentor could be a friend of yours who has really good advice, you know. You know, Issa Rae has this like amazing thing that she said about networking. It's not about networking up, it's about networking across, and that's about cultivating the community around you, the people that are in the fight with you, because you guys are all trying to level up, and you're going to level up together because, I mean, stronger together, which is really similar to what you guys are doing with Our Vibes. Like, it's you and Caroline who know each other from college, and you know, a group of you guys have established this, you know, created this brand, and it is about, you know, doing it together and having that community, because it will help you get to that next step and that next level.
Yeah, I love how you said network with your own community. It's not always someone about hire, because I think in college we're always taught like go with a director, go network with a recruiter, but that's great, right? But just how you spoke about it, like Caroline and I made something amazing, and now we're supporting other brands or other startups, and so they're gonna level up, and then so yeah, totally makes sense. And thank you so much for bringing that up. Jeannette, I know your industry is very white, and so can you tell us a lot more on like how you stay true to yourself? Because I know it's been hard, and I know the travel industry has pushed for more diversity. There's a group that has started because of that, trying to keep brands accountable. How do you stay true to your voice?
Yeah, so, you know, my purpose and passion and mission still continues to this day, since I was a young girl. And that is this building the inclusive travel movement. I've been at many travel conferences where I have been one of the few Latinos or Latinas, either speaking or just even attending, which would always make me sad because I wanted to see more of us there, because we are 18% of the US population. We're about 60.6 million in the US alone. Who is talking to us, right? But also where are we? Like it's twofold. You know, it's good for us to get more involved. In my industry, I mean, the travel, get more involved, mentorship, internships, going to these events, networking. That's kind of how I have come over the past 10 years. And when I was a young girl, I didn't understand my worth, kind of like what Eddie was saying, because I knew what I wanted, but I didn't fully believe that I could do it yet. But my heart and my why was always there. My why was outside of myself. It wasn't about me being famous or rich. That's not my purpose. But what scared me was my own success. So I self-sabotaged my own success along the way because I wasn't ready, or I didn't think I was ready. Now in my 30s, I am so ready. I don't care. I'm knocking on doors, making my own doors, building my own table, like, bye, okay. So I am super involved in speaking at colleges, mentoring. I have mentors. One of my dreams is, besides doing a travel show, is to create a scholarship for study abroad at my alma mater college, but maybe, you know, doing something national where, you know, I feel really passionate about youth and students, because I feel like the younger they can travel, like in college, for example, or high school, and do study abroad or work abroad or do a gap year, it can be life-changing. So I really like to get involved in that as well. But I'm also involved with Travel Unity, which is a nonprofit that was established in 2016 that works with tourism boards, that works with brands, that works with companies to increase the diversity and inclusion. And I'm really proud to be a part of that wonderful organization. And then also Jet Set with Jeannette, the whole with is inclusive. I want to bring people with me. It's not about me. I want you to come with me, and hopefully you have your own journey and travel, and it's exciting, and that's all I want. So I kind of forgot what the question was.
No, you're great. That's amazing. And I'll go with you wherever is your next travel location. Girl, bring me with you. I'm down. Eddie too.
We'll do a travel show together.
Yes, let's do this.
I love it. Well, I travel a lot to LA, so, you know, you can catch me there. So the next question, we'll start off with you, Jeannette, is have you seen more opportunities present themselves for you or your friends in the entertainment industry due to the current trend of companies needing to diversify themselves? How, like if it was been you, or how have they handled it?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely feel this year, because we're also going through the social, racial injustice and social injustice. I feel like now when I'm speaking about it, I'm actually being heard, or I'm being seen, or I'm actually getting a response back, like an email. Like I've sent a lot of emails to travel conferences, like, let's do something for Hispanics and Latinx. Let's do something. Let's celebrate, right? And I'm actually was getting responses and emails back, and people are taking me serious. So in that way, a lot of opportunities started to open and emerge. And for me, like I said, it's always been in me, but now I also believe in myself more. And I also can say that it's events like this that are so inspiring and empowering, because you walk out and you know that you have a community and support and empowerment, and it's all about how I can serve. So I'm here so to see how can I serve, how can I help, and it's great. So yeah, a lot of opportunities are still opening up for sure. I'm really grateful for that, and I hope it paves the way for more Latinos, especially in travel. I wish that for the future.
Yeah. Well, it's all about, showing up and showing your support, right? In whatever we're doing, networking, mentoring, but also supporting each other like we're doing this evening, right? Tricia, we'll go with you next.
Can I add something? I'm
Oh,
sorry.
yeah. Yeah, no, definitely.
When you say like helping each other, I think one of the biggest thing if we're focusing on content creation is supporting by commenting, sharing the videos,
Yes,
saving
absolutely.
them is much better than liking them. So like just supporting in that way and commenting, I think that will go a long way.
Right. Correct.
So I love this question because this is where I think we can make the most significant progress, which is that we get each other hired. Like straight up. And I say this every panel they ask me to sit on. I'm like, are you hiring people of color? And if you answer to me that you don't know any or there aren't any, I will help you with that because I know a lot of them.
Yes, absolutely.
I do not let people get away with that, right? So for me personally, I mentioned in the chat box, the National Association of Latino Independent Producers has been huge for my documentary career. Locally in the town that I live in San Jose, there's a group called the Multicultural Arts Leadership Institute, which is all artists of color and arts administrators of color. And it's a cohort. We do leadership development stuff, but then eventually we know each other. And I know people who are composers, and I know people who are dancers, and I know people who are actors, and outside of my particular medium, and then we hire each other. So just to give a very small example, my son, my 13-year-old is an actor and a dancer and a singer. He does musical theater. And so I'm very involved in local musical theater, not for my profession, but as a volunteer, as a mom, right? And with everything that's going on with the racial justice movement, it's totally hitting Broadway and it's totally hitting theater. And there's like this massive upheaval. So I'm serving on a committee that's a diversity committee that's really looking at how do we do this locally in our own theater in terms of casting, show selection, I mean, all of it, right? And so I'm inside now. And so when they're getting ready to run this next cycle of classes, which my son is part of, I'm a parent, right? I say, okay, so I know we teach musical theater dance. I really want to see us incorporate hip hop. And I've got 5 teachers that I can offer you. 3 African Americans, 1 Filipina, 1 Latina, because their answer is, we don't know anyone. We don't know how and I'm like, I do. Boom, here's the referrals. So to really insert ourselves when we can, and the minute someone says there aren't people of color available to hire, you tell them who your network is, you turn your friends on to them, you do the work for them in some ways, and then they can't say no. So that's my speech.
Mic drop, mic drop.
You can add something to add.
Yeah, can I just add something before I forget? I love that, and I'm so inspired. And can I say, can we keep this momentum going once Hispanic Heritage Month, Latinx Heritage Month is over? Because we deserve a 365, 24/7
Right.
kind of acknowledgement, support, recognition. I think, for me, in my mind, I was like, oh, we have to do as much as we can in 1 month. No, let's do it the whole year. Like, let's
Right.
keep this going. So that's all I wanted to add.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, I love that idea. And when I reached out to Our Vibes, I actually met Carolina via Instagram. So we were Insta friends before we became actual virtual friends. And when I came up with, reaching out to them, I said, look, I mean, this could be ongoing. We don't have to do it today, tomorrow. This is, an idea. Let's get to it. We need to do the work. And where I'm going with this is that I don't know how many watched the Emmys, but I know Tyler Perry had mentioned something along the lines of like, we can't wait for the white person to open the door. Like, we need to do it, but we also have to go knocking at those doors and saying, hey, we're here. So Eddie, your turn.
I think it was Alexis that said like, build your own table. Someone else said it. Who was it?
Right, building tables.
I'm so done. I'm so done with knocking on people's doors that don't see your value. Like, Emmys, what? Like, who cares about the Emmys? I'm sorry.
Right.
I don't give a shit about the Emmys. I don't care. I understand it's some sort of benchmark but to be honest, like, we have to move beyond that. The industry has changed, and I've been in this industry a pretty long time, and I've seen the shift. So back to the original question of, do you see more opportunities and stuff like that, right? When I went to VidCon the first time, there was no Latinos there. I was just a fan of making videos, and I was like, walking around, and I was seeing all these people, and I was like, there's no Latinos. I got to meet PewDiePie. Like, I literally went up to him. I have a picture with PewDiePie, like, no one knew who this dude was, but I was like so into it. I was like, this is my industry. But I was like, am I the only one here? Fast forward 2 years later, there was like one group of, I think it was like Me Too, who I had worked for. I forgot to mention that I worked with Me Too, and then kind of went and did my own thing too. They were in there as like in like guerrilla style. They had some people with like backpacks and flags and it's like looking for Latino content creators type of thing, Then the next year, Univision had some presence. So like I saw, it's like, okay, they're starting to become of this cohesiveness, like the cohesiveness starting to come together. Like, now you go to a lot of these events, like now you're starting to see it because people have been like, oh, you do this, I do this, like, let's connect, and you network and you grow together, like someone else mentioned, like everyone rises, right?
Right.
However, I have seen a shift, especially since este payaso got elected. Where the people still want that diversity, but they don't necessarily want everything that comes with it. They want to hire you, but they don't want you talking about, the political stuff with everyone, because they don't want to disturb the peace and stuff like that, right? So it's like you're starting to see the wave came, and now it's starting to retract a little bit, and I think that we have to continue to connect with people and focus on those things that bring us together, including people on the opposite side of the political spectrum. Find those common things, like find those things that you find connect you to people so that they're willing to hear you. I personally find that if you can make someone laugh, you can make someone cry, make someone connect on an emotional level, like I think Tricia mentioned earlier, they're more willing to listen to you. They're more willing to engage with you and try to understand you. But if we're always like this and only connecting with the people that align with our views of the world, we're going to be as disconnected as ever. You know what I mean? So it's important to continue that momentum beyond just the Latino-ness or Latinx's connections. Like, hey, let's connect the Filipina dancers and the African American dancers and the Puerto Ricans who have a show on Roku. Congratulations. Something in the comments, like, hey, let's connect all these people, and like, maybe it's not now, but later on in the future, we can bring in that diversity into our own project. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or be part of someone else's and help them out that way.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think like 5 years ago when I got involved with Outfest Los Angeles, it was on the fluke. Like I literally went on Facebook, and I think the Los Angeles Convention Center had this raffle going on, and they're like, oh, sign up here and you'll win this red carpet event, and it's a 3-night stay, this and that. I'm like, Outfest? I never heard of Outfest, because being in the Bay Area, you just hear of Frameline. And so I was like, oh my God, LA has an LGBTQIA, film festival. This is awesome. And so, but I was like, I don't know if this is one of those tricks where they get your information. I signed up, and sure enough, I won the 3-day red carpet event. And so I went down, and that was one of the things that I walked into this auditorium, and I was like, I looked to my friend, I'm like, are we the only Latinos here? Like, what's going on here? Like, this needs to change. I told him, I'm all, this needs to change. And he's all, what do you mean? I'm all, we have to change this. I'm all, there's not enough people of color here. I'm all, we have, okay, I see a few, Blacks, I see a few Latinos, but not enough, And so that's how I got involved. I spoke with one of the development managers. I'm like, how can I get involved? And I've just been involved ever since, because sometimes you might just have to be that Latino or that Latina at those conferences. You just have to show up. Right? Alexis.
I'm just nodding in agreement. I see the Virgin Mary above your head. I'm like, he is so blessed. He won the 3-day thing.
Rosa de Guadalupe.
Right.
Right, there we go. She blessed you. And that's absolutely true. I think also, I mean, when you are naturally pursuing, when you're on the path of pursuing what you are, want to pursue in life, things happen for you and doors open for you, opportunities do come. And I know sometimes it can feel really desperate. You're like, man, I'm looking for a job and I'm not getting hired. And it's, this sucks. Maybe I should quit and do something else. And it's like, right at that moment is when something happens. And that is like the plight of the path of being a creative and pursuing your passion, basically. I think that goes for anyone, not just creatives. But I have seen more opportunities for Latinx in the industry since the time that I started as well. I'm seeing so many more, companies realizing they need these authentic voices, and that they can't fake the funk anymore because their toes are being held to the fire. And so I think that this is a really exciting time. The tides are changing and there is a shift happening. And I think that, now, especially when Eddie, you speak to there being, a conglomerate and unity amongst these different creators that are, Latinx creatives and us making the connection, like being a unified force is how we're going to push for change, because us just, in our little cubicles are not going to do it on our own. We need each other to rise. And so, yeah, I'm just going to finish with that message again of unity and being in this together and not being afraid to reach out to Tricia when you hear what she does, like connect with her. Really, truly connect with me. Like, we're going to be hiring a fellow like soon. We have producers that are moving on to bigger and better things in their lives, and this is the blessing of us being able to continue to pursue what we're pursuing, is that doors will continue to open, and there is a wealth of opportunities, and there isn't this scarcity of opportunity, which is kind of what we've all been made to think. Like, there's only one diversity position available, to be staffed in that TV writing room. There's only one, and it's like, no, Latinos are 18% of the U.S. population.
Right.
Like, we are a force to be reckoned with. We are, 2.3 like GDP, like spending money in this country. Like we represent a huge portion of the US economy. So I think that companies are seeing that, and there is definitely a reckoning happening. And it is an exciting time in that I think we're going to see way more opportunities, but it is also, you know, a time that we need to be vigilant and be ready with our freaking pitchforks to come in and you know, stake our claim on the land. So that's where I leave it.
I think everyone went. So moving forward to the next question, I know we've covered it a little bit so far, but if you were to tell yourself when you were starting, or someone who's fairly new, seeing that there's not a lot of Latinos or opportunities, or people even saying now who do have experience that say there's not a lot of opportunities for Latinos, what would you tell them? And I can start with Eddie.
I think I already mentioned it, but just develop your worth and know your worth. That's the top for me. That's the most important. I think when you jump into something, you have a fear like something's not gonna work out. If you keep focusing on that, hey, you know what, this is an experience for me to develop my worth. That thing's gonna connect to something else. Another door's gonna open. If that door doesn't open, crawling through the window, figure out a way to get in, and you know, just keep moving forward. And I think like just not being afraid of failure. You know, the word failure, I think in our community is like, well, that's why you don't do something. It's like a failure. Just don't be afraid of that word, and start thinking of it as it's a learning opportunity that's going to take you to the next thing. You learn from that bad contract. Next time you do a contract, you're not going to get into it. You know, you're going to ask for more or whatever it is. So it's just it's an evolution. And when I was younger, I didn't think of things that way. I thought it was like, it's win or fail, and that's not how it is. It's all in the benefit of improving you as a person, evolving you as a human being. So that's what I have to add.
That makes perfect sense. Like, how do you know you needed to negotiate more if you didn't even start from the beginning because of that fear? And so it does take some failing to do, and there's no way to be perfect. So that's like great advice. How about you, Jeannette? What would you say to someone who says there's like a lack of opportunities for Latinos?
I would go continue with what Eddie was saying. It's really believing in yourself and your self-worth, and knowing that anything is possible. And if somebody is, you know, if there's something you want to accomplish, like, you know, I don't know, an astronaut, something really literally out of this world, but you don't see anyone that looks like you, or you don't think you can for whatever reason, geographic or you name it. I think it's important to know that you can, and maybe if you have to pave your own way and be the first, that's okay. Although it's scary, I will say, because even for me, my whole life, I was looking for someone just to say, okay, do point A, do point B, and it'll be easy. But there's that famous saying, right, that success is like a squiggly line, and a lot of that is ups and downs and failures. And I have so many failures, but I don't look at failure as a bad thing, because I've grown, I've learned. And then I started to believe in my worth and my you know, myself, which kept me going. And I think another thing that's important, I would tell my younger self, or anyone out there who has a dream, is know your why. Like, what is your why? Like, why do you want to do what you want to do? Because that is what will keep you going during the toughest times, during a pandemic. I mean, so many people in my industry, not so many people, but some people had just completely disappeared. Why? Their why wasn't strong enough. You got to be in it for something bigger than yourself. Like, that is what has kept me going. When there have been people who said, like, you know, you'll never be able to do it because you're a woman, because you're this, because you're that, etc. And my why is just too big. I gotta keep doing it. Even when I dated guys, like, you know, in LA, I dated guys for 10 years, and I'm kind of taking a break. So, you know, they would say, you travel too much. What guy is going to date a woman that travels as much as you? And of course that stung and that hurt a little, but my why is too much bigger. I'm like, I gotta keep going. So in every way, it's know your why, and that is what will keep you going through the toughest of the times, especially like right now during a pandemic. I'm still going, my why is still there, and it will still happen somehow, some way. So yeah.
Yes, perfectly said. Yeah.
Know your why and believe in yourself. And also to what Eddie was saying, you know, we sometimes may have a fear of success or fear of failure or both. I had a fear of success. So I had to really recognize that. Why am I afraid to be successful? Because I was afraid of being seen, of being heard, of being appreciated, because I never really felt that for a long time. So it was scary. But when you start to do more of the self-development, start to understand your worth, you're like, oh, absolutely. I'm not going to play small anymore. No more playing small. No more taking less than you deserve. No more. Like, come on. Okay.
So good. So good. What about you, Tricia?
I would say find your people. You need to find your people that care about what you care about, that you can be totally vulnerable and honest and authentic with. To Jeannette's point, most of us are going to be the first. That's just the nature of this, the way that it's going. And it's hard to be the first, and sometimes it's exhausting and it's scary. And I need to have my people that I can go to and speak that truth with. And then they're like, I hear you, I hear you, I hear you, get back out there. And I'm by your side, and I'm going to help you do it.
Yeah.
You know, I have my team of people who I've worked with for decades, friends that I made in film school that became collaborators forever and ever. And one of them in particular is the friend that I go to when I want to quit. And she knows her job is to tell me it's not good to quit. And she's very good at that job. And she helps me get back out there, right? So just, again, this is back tied to the networking, the finding people who are like you, whether you find, you know, a group for women, if you find a group for queer folks, if you find a group for whatever the thing is, Latinos, you know, you need to find your people. And in my case, you want to find multiple groups of people, right, that can support you at different points. They're the ones that are going to help you keep going.
Yeah. No, that makes total sense. Alexis?
I agree with everything everyone has said. Such great advice. I would also say to arm yourself with data. Like, the data doesn't lie. Like, numbers don't lie. So if someone's trying to tell you that, you know, you're like the Latinx story, no one cares about that story, you tell them they're, you know, we make up 18% of the population. You tell them how much we're contributing to the economy. You show them a video of Eddie G's that's gone super duper viral. Like, this is proof. This is, you know, that proof is brings so much value. And also for the person out there that's struggling, like, oh, I really want to get this film made, or I really, you know, I want to write, but I am stuck at my 9-to-5 job and it's killing me. Like, there are programs, there are grants, you know, there are so many things that, like, sometimes you have to think outside of the box, because our families don't know about this stuff. They didn't teach us, oh, go pursue that grant because you could, you know, it'll give you enough money to travel around the world for a year. Like, those opportunities do exist, and I just want to encourage the people that are listening to this panel, like, you know, to Google, like, it's literally a Google search away, and also, like, you're not going to get accepted to every program. That's just part of the process. But there's this amazing saying that one of my coworkers told me, Alexis Tirado. She said, rejection is God's protection. So if you get rejected for something, it's because there's something else for you, or you're being protected from that for a reason. So that's just, yeah, that's my perspective on it.
So much great knowledge. I'm just like soaking all of this in, and I know a lot of people are. Yeah. It's just amazing. So let's move on to, we could take questions from the audience. I know some people have written some. So I'll go with the first one. Let's see. Oh, this one's long. Okay, I'll just read it. So I've been working in the industry for a few years, which has been mainly white male dominated, and I feel intimidated at times walking into a room and being the only person of color. Any advice to get through that fear and learning to speak up? And I think Tricia touched on this a little bit, but if anyone wants to just jump in and answer this quickly, feel free to do so.
I always have more to say about walking into spaces and owning the space, so I just want to drop briefly. If you are talking about the thing that you are super passionate about, people will respect that. So I can walk up to men who are, you know, really seasoned cinematographers who know more technology than me, blah, 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 but I can talk movies with the best of them. I can talk about what I find fascinating, what excited me, what was intriguing, and they see my passion and excitement, and it elevates me in that conversation, right? So if you can just stay true to what you're there for and what you love, I find that a lot of people will respect that.
I totally agree with that, and I think we come from a place where we've already had a few successes in what we've done, but I'm just going back in my mind to a time when I was the only person there in a room full of people that didn't look like me, and I'll tell you, like, that's something that we as people of color struggle with. It's the imposter syndrome, where, like, am I qualified to be here? And it's like, what if I'm not smart enough, or like these white people are smarter than me? It's like, let me tell you, the older I get, the more I realize that everyone's a dumbass. And like, you just have to give people enough time to like go like, wait a minute, you're white, but you're a dumbass, you know? Like, and a lot of times we just go based on that, like, oh, they've got a suit and stuff like that. And if you know your stuff, you will eventually get to a place where the color of their skin doesn't matter. You know, it's just like, wait, I know for a fact I know more about this than you do. I'm a subject matter expert, and I can speak on this confidently. So confidence only comes from, again, building that value. Going back to that, you know, just if you don't feel confident, first is like, get over that mental block. You're in there for a reason. If you're there for a reason. So if you didn't see the value in yourself, it's on you. You need to realize that someone saw the value in you, and that's why you're there. So the sooner that you get over that like, oh, it's the color of my skin, or the fact that I'm a woman, and you start focusing on, like, no, it's my value, and I got something to contribute, and these people are dumbasses, the faster you're gonna rise. Like, I swear to God. Like, I think that's what's been my experience. So,
I just want to add to that, because I agree with Tricia and Eddie. It's, you know, I think going back to the roots of self-worth, it's the root of so much. Knowing that you are worthy, that you're enough, right? That you are enough just as you are. And there's a difference, I think, between ego and confidence. So ego is, you know, when you don't feel secure, so you have to put on a show, like, you know, and I feel like people can sense when someone has a really big ego. It's energy, you can feel it. As opposed to confidence, where you walk into a room and you're like, regardless if they like me, regardless if they say yes or no, I like me. I know that I'm worth it. I know that somebody out there will like what I'm saying. So it's okay. It's confidence. So I think building on that, one of the things that I do personally is I do affirmations. And I think that doing affirmations for the past 2 or 3 years, writing Post-its on my bathroom mirror and saying, you know, I am enough, I am worthy, I am lovable. When I started to do that, I would brush my teeth, wash my face. I would fit it into my routine, because, you know, we make time for what we want. So I really forced myself to do this every morning. And I think it was Tony Robbins who said that, you know, 30 days is a habit, 90 days is a lifestyle change. After you do something consistently for about 90 days, it becomes a lifestyle change. So I began to do affirmations, and really it started to plant these really seeds in my mind and my confidence, where I was like, well, maybe I am enough. Maybe I am worthy, lovable. And when I first started the affirmations in the mirror saying I'm lovable, you guys, I would start crying. And I was like, why am I crying? Because older Jeannette was telling younger Jeannette something she didn't believe for the longest time. And I was watching in real time this like transformation slowly happening. So I highly recommend doing affirmations personally, to build that self-confidence, because it is something that I think you do consistently, that will help you. When you walk into a room, people will feel it. You don't even have to say anything. Like, whoa, who is that? I want to talk to her, him, like, gosh, you know, as opposed to ego, or like, you know, it's so different. So.
Wow, that was amazing. So we want to end it off because we don't have more time for questions. We want to respect everyone's time. It's almost 6:30, but you have their handles. They're on their screens. Make sure you follow them. Make sure you give them some nice encouragement, and just thank them for being here tonight, because they took time out of their day to spill so much knowledge to us and give us so many secrets of the industry and being very honest with us. So thank you everyone for joining us. Make sure you follow our vibes and Funny Robbie Rob. We are so excited to have been here tonight with everyone, and everybody have a good night.
Yes.
Thank you so much for having us. Remember, everyone's a dumbass.
Slide into my DMs. Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.